The doorbell rings. You open it. He's holding a casserole dish, smiling, asking how your new baby is sleeping. You invite him in. You always invite him in. That's the thing. Nobody tells you about monsters. They don't look like monsters. They look like your neighbor, your deacon, your coworker who remembers your birthday. For 30 years, a man walked among ordinary people, ate dinner at their tables, held their children, fixed their fences, and killed, not once, not twice, over and over, across decades, while the people who loved him noticed nothing, not a flicker, not a shadow crossing his face at the wrong moment, just a husband, a father, a member of the community council. This isn't one single case. It's a pattern that's repeated itself again and again in the real history of serial violence, from the Green River Killer to BTK to men whose names barely made headlines outside their own towns. And once you understand how it worked, you'll never look at normal the same way again. Let's build him, not as a monster, but as a man, because that's exactly how he built himself. Picture the town first, small enough that everyone waves, church on Sunday, a hardware store where the owner knows your name. This is the soil this kind of predator grows in. Not despite the closeness, but because of it. Trust isn't an accident in these places. It's the water they drink, and he understood that better than anyone. He wasn't unemployed or drifting. He held a steady job. Sometimes something that put him near people at their most vulnerable. A utility worker who had a reason to knock on any door in the neighborhood. A man involved in local volunteer work. Someone whose face belonged at the community fair and the funeral both. The kind of job that gave him legitimate access to strangers, and a legitimate excuse if anyone ever asked why he'd been seen somewhere he shouldn't have been. He married. He had children. And here's the detail that should chill you more than any weapon. His family loved him. Not out of naivety, not because they were blind, because the version of him they saw was real too. He compartmentalized so completely that the loving father and the killer weren't performing for each other. They simply never met. That's the architecture of a double life. 2 rooms in the same house, and a door between them that only he had the key to. You need to understand the years between the murders, because that's the part that breaks people's assumptions the hardest. We imagine killers as constant, restless, hunting every week. The truth is stranger and colder. Some of these men killed and then stopped, sometimes for years, and lived so normally in between that even a lie detector, even a suspicious detective, walked away convinced. He coached a little league team the same season he was under investigation. He sat in a police station, answering questions about a missing woman, calm as still water, and then went home and mowed the lawn. Think about that, sitting across from someone who was already killed, asking him questions, watching his hands, steady, his voice, even his eyes, meeting yours without flinching. That is not sociopathy in the cartoon sense. That is a nervous system that simply does not carry guilt the way yours does. He isn't suppressing panic. There's no panic to suppress. This is the part that should genuinely disturb you. Several of these men were investigated multiple times over the decades, named as suspects, interviewed, let go. Not because police were incompetent, but because nothing about him triggered the instinct that says, something is wrong here. He passed every informal test a community runs on its members without knowing it's running one. Now the victims, because they matter more than his story ever should. The pattern, again and again across real cases like this, is brutal in its predictability. He chose people the world had already decided not to look for too hard. Runaways, sex workers, hitchhikers, women struggling with addiction, women without stable homes, women whose disappearances wouldn't trigger a task force or a front page. He wasn't choosing them because they were easy targets in some abstract sense. He was choosing them because he understood, with cold clarity, exactly how the system would respond. Or rather, wouldn't. That's the second horror layered under the first. It's not just that he got away with it, it's that the world built the conditions for him to get away with it, because it had already decided which lives came with a search party attached, and which didn't. Families waited, some for years, some for decades. They kept photographs on refrigerators. They called police stations that stopped returning calls. They aged, searching for daughters who had already been gone for 20 years, while the man who took them attended block parties 2 towns over. If you're the kind of person who can't stop thinking about cases like this, the quiet ones, the decades-long ones, there's a channel worth subscribing to, because we go deep into exactly how these investigations finally cracked open, not for shock value, because understanding how it happened is the only real defense any of us have. So how does it end? How does 30 years of silence break? Almost never through a confession. Almost never through a slip of the tongue at a dinner party. It's DNA sitting in an evidence locker for decades, waiting for technology to catch up to the crime. It's a discarded piece of trash tested years after the fact. It's a genealogy database built by hobbyists tracing their ancestry, never imagining it would become the thread that unravels a serial killer. It's a single letter he couldn't resist sending because some of them, after enough years of silence, start to crave the attention almost as much as they crave the act itself. The compulsion to be known, even anonymously, even dangerously, becomes its own kind of hunger. And when the arrest finally comes, it's never dramatic in the way fiction promises. No chase, no standoff. Just police cars pulling up outside a house with a mowed lawn and a wife inside, who has no idea her husband is about to become the story on every news channel in the state. Picture her face in that doorway. Picture the moment the two rooms in his life, finally, violently, collide. That's the moment his children stop being able to say his name without flinching. That's the moment 30 years of Sunday dinners get rewritten in everyone's memory, searched backward for a sign that was never there to find, because there wasn't one. That's the cruelest truth of all. People will spend the rest of their lives combing through old memories for a warning sign, and they will not find it, because it did not exist. He was that good at being ordinary. Here's what stays with me about stories like this, and it isn't the violence. It's the ordinariness. It's the fact that evil, when it's patient enough, doesn't need to hide in shadows or alleyways. It just needs a driveway, a job, a wave hello. It needs a community that has decided, without ever saying so out loud, which disappearances are worth investigating, and which ones aren't. Take that away, and some of these men might have been caught in year 2 instead of year 30. We want to believe we'd know. That something in our gut would recognize the wrongness in a person like this. The way you can smell smoke before you see fire. But the entire, unbearable lesson of these cases is that you wouldn't, not because you're careless, because he built himself, brick by brick, over decades, specifically so that you couldn't. So maybe the question isn't how he fooled everyone for 30 years. Maybe it's this. How many people are we deciding, right now, not to look for hard enough?